Today on People and Money, we're joined by Clinton Township native filmmaker and author Charles Dewandeler. Got his start in television 20 years ago as a cameraman on my show. 11 years ago, he moved to Hollywood, California, where he's edited hit TV shows like Martin Lawrence Presents, First Amendment Stand-Up, and the new season of The Kindness Diaries that you can see on Netflix. Charles is also a writer-director of the Parody Movie, author of the novel Black Ice, and his new novel, Superheroes, the Movies and Why We Love Them. Today on People and Money, I have the exciting task of interviewing one of my good friends, Clinton Township native, now in Los Angeles, direct from Los Angeles, Charles Dewandeler. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good.
I think you got a little better weather than us right about now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, this is actually the perfect weather in LA. It's not too hot. That's the way I like it.
Charles started out his fantastic career right here in the CTTV studios as one of our associate producers and cameramen. I'm proud to say that that's probably what triggered him and vaulted him to LA to take on all the challenges. But it all started out with the idea to go LA, and what were you looking most forward to on your trip out that way when you decided to move?
Well, my goal ever since I was in the 5th grade is directing. So I've always been very goal-oriented. Maybe some people might come to LA for the weather or the beaches, but I came out here with the goal to make movies and TV shows.
Now you've been out there 11 years, and you've edited and worked on some pretty big shows out there, obviously Kindness Diaries, Netflix, etc. As well as, before you left, we did the Parody Movie locally here, which was your first movie, correct?
Yeah, that was my first feature film. I've been making short films since I was in about the 5th grade, but that was my first feature-length movie, and shot right there in Michigan.
I remember, and we had a lot of fun. We went to the premiere, and it's done okay.
I couldn't stop laughing throughout the whole movie.
What would you think?
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm glad he made me come.
It was very enjoyable.
What do you think?
It was excellent. It was really funny. I laughed a lot.
It's a lot of fun.
Way too much fun.
I thought that was unbelievable. I mean, I was hysterically laughing the whole time. I just, I couldn't believe that that someone with a limited budget could pull off a movie like that with the amount of effects that were in it and just the different stuff that was going on.
Currently, it's on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. And my goal is just to hope that a lot of people watch it and enjoy it and makes them laugh.
So the book you wrote was basically why people love superheroes.
In the new book, Superheroes, Their Movies, and Why We Love Them, discover the extraordinary and sometimes shocking history of comic books, superheroes, and the films they inspire, including answers to all the age-old questions. Is Superman the first superhero? Why did movie studios reject Batman in the 80s? What would Marvel be without Stan Lee? What happened to James Cameron's Spider-Man movie? Who is the most popular superhero? And who's winning the war between DC and Marvel? Superheroes, Their Movies, and Why We Love Them. Order your paperback copy today on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, or buy the ebook on Kindle, iBooks, Nook, or any of these other great digital bookstores.
We also got a great review from the executive producer of Batman Films, Michael Uslan, who read the book and had this to say about it. Charles Dewandeler's book was a bat-tastic read, told with love for all of these great superheroes who comprise the world's modern-day mythology. Wow. Tell us a little bit about the new book.
I've always been a huge fan of superheroes. When I was a kid, I think I liked Superman like everybody else. And then the Batman movie came out. That was about 30 years ago. Michael Keaton starring as Batman. And that really changed people's perception of superhero movies. They became these huge blockbuster movies that then all the movie studios wanted to make. And I remember when that was all first starting and I was a kid, and I just fell in love with superheroes, started collecting comic books, started watching all the superhero movies, and it's just been something I've been interested in ever since. superheroes can do things that we can't do. They can fly, they're impervious to harm, they're super strong. But I think they also embody what people want to aspire to, like being the good guy, fighting evil, and also action, adventure. The stories are exciting, and the characters are very relatable. They have secret identities, or human secret identities, like Bruce Wayne, that people can relate to. And maybe when he's in costume as Batman, he's this scary, intimidating character. But then when you see him without the costume, when he's just Bruce Wayne, he's a human being that people can relate to. And I think all movies, all stories, you want to be able to relate to the main characters like that.
I know you're a comic book junkie, especially superhero, Marvel, etc., which led to you writing your own comic, Black Ice, which, by the way, is more about Detroit and kind of your hometown ideas and your thought train. So, Black Ice, what story does that? Don't give the story away, because we want people to want to get the comic book. But what inspired you to write a comic book? And obviously the topic has something to do with us here in Detroit.
So Black Ice is the novel that I wrote, and then the comic book I wrote is Motor City Saints. But they both take place in Michigan. So Black Ice takes place in a fictional city called Coolidge, Michigan, and it's about high school students getting in black ice crashes, in car crashes and stuff like that. And then Motor City Saint is the superhero who is from the Motor City, which is Detroit. The Motor City Saint was inspired by a friend of mine who likes to, I saw on Facebook, he was dressing up in costume and visiting kids in hospitals. And I asked him, is that a character that's from a comic book or whatever? And he's like, no, it's a character I made up. And I said, do you think it could be a comic book? Should it be a comic book? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, should I write it? And he goes, okay. So I ended up writing a script and sending it to him, and we talked about it back and forth and brainstormed, and I ended up hiring an artist to draw the comic book for us, and then we just kind of put it out there. It's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, it's on Comixology, which is like an Amazon website for comic books. So it's out there, people can read it, and my goal is to one day get more issues made.
A few months back, we lost one of the more famous comic book writers of all time, Stan Lee. I'm sure a billion people read the comic books, not necessarily knowing who that was. Was he an inspiration to you? And is he in your book?
Yes, I have an entire chapter devoted to Stan Lee and Marvel Comics, and he is a huge inspiration for comic book writers, comic book artists. He got his start before the 1960s, but he really became famous in the 1960s when he created superheroes like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Ant-Man, the Hulk, a whole bunch of characters that now we see in movies that make $1 billion. But he was writing them in little comic books in the 60s, having no idea that they were going to be this huge cultural phenomenon that they've become today.
Let's talk about money for a minute, because you're in the movie making business now. I'd imagine that the Batman movie in the 80s, I'd imagine that the old Superman shows that we used to watch on TV when I was a kid, production was not that expensive. What are we talking about money-wise today in that business?
Well, because superhero movies make so much money, that over the years they've increased the budget of the movies. So now superhero movies are so insanely expensive. And literally when you watch a 2-hour superhero movie, almost the entire movie now, it seems like, is visual effects. Back in the old days, they used to try and do things more practical effects, let's say. Only on special occasions would they do special shots where the character is flying through the sky or something like that. And sometimes they try and do optical illusions with the camera to make it look like they're flying. But nowadays, everything is shot, it seems like, in front of a green screen. And that gets very expensive. I heard in the late 90s it costs up to $1 million a minute for the visual effects of big budget movies back then. And nowadays, a 2-hour movie, if most of the movie is costing $1 million a minute, then it's easy to understand why a movie would cost $100 million, $150 million, $200 million to do the kind of visual effects they do in a movie like Avengers or Black Panther or something like that, for example. So the movies today are just way, way more expensive than they used to be.
Is there still room, Charles, for young producers put together a budget? I had a lot of fun with the Parody Movie. Put together a budget, make a movie that's reasonable in cost, whatever that number is, and somehow with the distribution of social media, etc. I can appreciate that that's probably possible. Can you make any money doing that? I mean, that happens to be my career. I'm in the money business, so I guess it just comes to me naturally to ask that question.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's a good question. I myself am trying to figure out how to make a movie for a certain amount of money and how to make that money back. And if I had a really good financial person here in Los Angeles, maybe they could help me with crunching those numbers and figuring out what the distribution would be and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays with Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, all these other streaming services, there's a lot more people making movies, and they're not all $200 million movies. But I would definitely love to make a movie like Motor City Saints, turn that into a movie, or make my book Black Ice into a movie, or make another superhero movie for a more reasonable budget. And hopefully people will see it on some of these streaming services that we have today.
Well, keep me in mind, because I think I should be in the movie. I have a certain appeal to certain people. We're not really sure who those are. You recently had a couple book signings, one in LA, one here in Michigan. It had to be fun to have people come in and ask you to sign your book for them.
It's nice when friends or family come in and they want to get a book, and you can chat with them and give them something. But it's really interesting when you meet a complete stranger and you're starting a conversation with a complete stranger talking about superheroes or whatever, and then they end up buying your book, you know. So I had my first autograph signing was in Los Angeles at the Sherman Oaks Art Walk. Met some people there that were just walking down the sidewalk looking at artwork, chatted up some people that were really into superheroes there. And then I had the autograph signing in Michigan, not too far from where you guys are at Comics Corner, which is coincidentally the comic book store that I used to go to when I was a kid to buy comic books. So it kind of came full circle. The comic book store I used to buy comics at, I was now at signing autographs in the store for the book that I wrote about superheroes.
We chatted a little bit about your vision to own the Batmobile, not necessarily reality at this time financially, but you came as close as you could. Go ahead and laugh. So you knew I was going to ask this. Will you tell us a little bit about the LA Batmobile that you're now driving, paying for?
So ever since I saw the first Batman movie, I've always loved that Michael Keaton Batmobile, the one that was based on a Corvette, I think. And I think those probably would cost $1 million or more to get one like that. And like you said, I can't afford that now. Maybe 10 years from now, I can have some more investments. Maybe you can help me invest that money so I can save up enough to buy a Batmobile. But in the meantime, I bought the closest thing I could, which is a black Mustang, which looks a lot like the Batmobile. It doesn't have the flames that come out the back, but it's still a nice looking car, and people look at it, they like it, so it's a nice car.
But you got the Charles Batmobile now.
Yeah, it's the Charles Mobile, yeah.
Yeah, very good. The ultimate goal. Obviously, you've accomplished a lot in 11 years. I'm proud to call you my friend. I know Johnny here, when you worked here and you were still learning and aspiring to all this. But you have to be, it's a mission. And what is the ultimate goal? If obviously you heard me say it 100 times on this show, if you could wave a magic wand, what would Charles be doing at the peak of this career path that you're on?
My ultimate goal, which ties into exactly what we were talking about, would be directing a Batman movie. Directing a feature film Batman movie, the full 9 yards of $100 million, $150 million, whatever it costs. But I don't really care about the cost of it or the visual effects aspect of it. I just like the character Batman, and I want to tell a Batman story that I think is true to the comic books and true to the source material. Something that's hopefully as good as the Batman movies that I saw as a kid and as good as the Christopher Nolan movies that came out recently. Those are some of the best superhero movies ever made, and I would love to create one in that category.
Do you see this craze and this phase somewhere disappearing, and maybe in the next generation it's just not there anymore? Or do you feel with the technology, creativeness, and special effects that this is something that will go on for generations to come?
I think we're definitely going to have superhero movies for the next 100 years. The question is, are we going to have as many as we do now? And are they still going to be making as much money as they do now? So right now, Marvel Comics is making between, I should call them Marvel Studios, who produces the Iron Man movies and Spider-Man and all those kind of movies. Avengers, Black Panther, that's all Marvel. They're producing about 3 to 4 movies a year. And some of those movies are making over $1 billion. And I can only imagine, are they going to continue making 3 movies a year for the next 100 years? And are they going to keep making $1 billion a movie? It seems hard to imagine, but it's possible. Or maybe they'll slow down and make 1 movie a year. I mean, who knows? It all depends on whether or not people are buying tickets to see these movies in theaters. And at least for the foreseeable future, it seems like they are. The last Avengers movie made almost $2 billion in the theaters, which is just a record-breaking amount of money. That's almost up there with the movie Avatar. So if they can continue making that kind of money, they're going to keep making the movies for sure.
Well, and I think all generations, at least from mine on down, today still are very much excited by it, still enjoy watching Batman. It takes people into another place. It allows you to leave your headaches, your daily routine, students, people that are working hard every day. You're really able to just leave all that and go into the movie or sit down and watch something that you feel you could be part of, or many people feel I could be Batman. It floors me how many people still go to the movies. It's not cheap to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of movies don't even come out in the theater anymore because it's so hard to get people to go to the theater. But certain movies people will still go to the theater for, like superhero movies. So if you're making a movie about the 1800s, something that happened in France, it might just come out on Netflix or go straight to DVD. It might skip the theaters because they might think that people aren't going to go buy tickets for that. But when they're making a movie about the Avengers or they're making a movie about Batman, they know people are going to go to the theaters to watch that movie. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Hollywood right now scratching their heads trying to figure out what can we get people to go to the theater to see, and what do we have to release some other way, because it's very expensive to put a movie in theaters, and a lot of theater companies don't want to put a movie in their theater that's not going to sell tickets. They don't want to put a movie up there and then all the seats are empty, because then they're not making money. So how do you make a movie that the movie theaters want to show in the theater, and you think you're going to sell enough tickets to make money from that?
I would be remiss not to mention your biggest fans, who also are very good friends of mine, your family. I'd imagine that, and I know as you went through school, actually with some of my kids, and came here to work, takes a lot of support from home. You know, everybody used to want their kid to grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer, not a Batman director. But you got some really good support from your family.
Yeah, that's true. Ever since I was in the 5th grade and I was making short films and I told people I wanted to direct movies, even if some of my friends would laugh at me and say, oh, well, yeah, you're not going to go to Hollywood, you're not going to make movies, that's crazy. My parents would always tell me you can do whatever you want to do. So my parents, first and foremost, and then my other relatives and friends of mine have always been supportive of my directing movies. And even if they think it's crazy, they don't tell me they think it's crazy. They just go, all right, keep going for it. You know, maybe some other people might say I'm crazy behind my back, but I don't worry about what they're thinking. I just want to do my thing and make my movies and tell the stories that I want to tell.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm so excited. I'm proud to be your friend. I know Johnny here, we just laugh all the time about it. From when you first came in here, nervous wreck running the cameras. Actually one of the more creative people we ever had around here. I know Johnny had a lot of confidence in the direction you were going. And being from that background himself, he knows what the challenge is. You know you're always welcome here. You know it's great when you come into town, we get to see you a little bit. And keep us in check with the books, the movies, comics. Let us know what else is going on. And I know young people that aspire to be just like you probably want to ask you some questions about, you know, we spoke about a lot of good things here. We didn't talk about what you drove before the Mustang, so, or not eating that much when you first moved out there. But I think that what you've achieved to this point is admirable. And all we can do from here, obviously, is always root for you. We're your cheer team and wish you the best success. We're all in your corner, and you know what? That we couldn't be any better than that.
And I thank you for having me on the show. You had me on the show when we released Parody Movie. You've had me on the show now to talk about the new project. So, yeah, it's interesting that I started as a cameraman on your show, and now I'm on your show being interviewed talking about the projects I'm working on. But I definitely appreciate you having me on the show and all your support and everything.
Well, that's a little scary too for me because, see, I got a little older in the process, and when you came on the show originally, I had a little bit of black hair, which now I dyed gray to look more distinguished, obviously. We're going to wish you the best, myself, Johnny, my producer, and everybody here at CTTV. Thanks for spending some time. We're going to keep in touch. We're going to get you back again. For People and Money, this is Tom Hakim.
This is CTTV, the voice of Clinton Township, Michigan.